Cam89 here, and today we have something a little bit different for you. Now, this channel has dabbled a little bit in board games before, and depending on how well this video does, I'd like to do a little bit more with board games, as well as continue video games, of course. But today, for the very first time on this channel, we are going to be bringing you a battle report for Axis and Allies G.I. Joe Battle for the Arctic Circle. And for today's scenario, we will be playing the cold open battle scenario for our very first battle report of G.I. Joe Battle for the Arctic Circle. Now, the victory conditions for this scenario are the following. Capture any enemy base. Your team has 10 plus victory points at the end of a round. At the end of round 7, your team has the most victory points. Round 1, here you can see the turn order: Cobra Commander, Admiral Keel Hall, Destro, and Snow Job. We will be starting off with Cobra Commander. In the mobilization phase for Cobra Commander, he decides to use all 16 reinforcement points, getting 4 infantry and 1 destroyer. Cobra Commander decides to be aggressive on his first turn, sending out 3 destroyers, infantry, armor, and rattlers, and is able to capture 3 separate victory points, for a total of 4 victory points on his first turn. Here, Cobra Commander decides to place 2 infantry at the North Pole base, 2 infantry at its harbor base, and also places 1 destroyer at its harbor base as well. And the end of Cobra Commander's first turn, we get a nice aerial view of the current situation in the North Pole. Admiral Hall is now starting his first turn in round 1. Starting with 24 reinforcement points, Admiral Keel Hall purchases a destroyer, Snowcat, and Sky Striker, leaving him with 1 in the strategic reserve, which in this version of Axis and Allies you can save up to 4 points in order to be able to use it in the next round. Feeling the pressure from Cobra Commander, Admiral Keel Hall decides that they are going to use 1 Snowcat up in Greenland to capture a single victory point, and then sends a destroyer with infantry and 1 Snowcat unit to be able to capture another victory point in their next turn. They decide to leave the rest of their forces in their main harbor base. Admiral Hall decides to place 1 Snowcat in Greenland, the destroyer and Sky Striker over at its harbor base. Next up is Destro, and receiving 16 reinforcement points, he decides that he's going to purchase an infantry unit, a wolf unit, and 1 destroyer, costing 15 reinforcement points. He then decides that he's going to use the Weather Dominator, costing 1 reinforcement point, creating a land bridge between the North Pole and Greenland. A strategic move for the Cobra forces. Destro in the combat phase decides that he is going to go on the offensive, capturing a victory point near his harbor base, also capturing 1 victory point in Greenland, and attacking Admiral Keel Hall in northern Greenland as well. After a quick battle, Destro forces are easily able to remove the Snowcat, resulting in no casualties for Destro, and capturing another crucial victory point. Destro then mobilizes his destroyer at his harbor base, an infantry and wolf unit over in its North Pole base. Next we have Snow Job, who is going to receive 24 reinforcement points. Snowjob decides to spend 23 of his 24 reinforcement points, choosing to save one in the strategic reserve to be used at a later round. He purchases one Sky Striker, Snowcat, and one Destroyer. Snowjob decides to go on the offensive, sending one Snowcat north of its harbor base to capture one victory point, then sends out a Destroyer with an infantry and Snowcat unit to capture another victory point for a total of 2 victory points. Snowjob decides that he's going to mobilize his fighter and Snowcat unit into Greenland and his Destroyer at his harbor base. At the end of round 1, we can see that the Cobra forces have come out swinging with a total of 7 victory points and suffered no losses, although there was only 1 round of combat during that entire round. G.I Joe currently at 2 victory points and a total of 5 reinforcement points lost, losing a Snowcat. We're also seeing the state of the map after round 1. What would you have done differently? I think we're going to start to see a little bit more action going into round 2. At the start of round 2, we have Cobra Commander, who has 20 reinforcement points and mobilizes an aircraft carrier along with a Rattler. Continue to push towards victory points. We see Cobra Commander push out a cruiser and 2 infantry and land them near a victory point worth 1 point. Not able to get it on this round, but should be able to pick it up easily in the next round. We also see a shifting of units as well as Cobra Commander continues to fortify troops onto Greenland. It looks like the Cobra forces will be attempting to try to put pressure on the main base on Greenland there. No combat conducted on this round for Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander then mobilizes its aircraft carrier and Rattler at its harbor base. And at the end of Cobra Commander's turn, this is the current state of the battle map. It is now Admiral Hall's turn, getting 25 reinforcement points. We see them mobilize 2 cruisers, 1 Snowcat, and 2 infantry. He decides to go on the offensive on this one, capturing a easy victory point for 1, and then sending over troops to attack Cobra Commander to his north. Admiral Hall's attack on Cobra Commander is successful. However, losing 2 units of their own, they were unable to capture the victory point at this time, but will be able to do so in the next phase. The Admiral decides to use his special ability, being able to land a single land unit on any hex space that contains a cruiser. So he is now able to take that 1 victory point from Cobra Commander and then places the rest of his units over into the Greenland base and also in the harbor. Here is a look at the global map after Admiral Keel Hall's turn, and you can see that he's placed himself in a pretty good position, I think, to be able to do some pretty good offensive damage in some later rounds here. He has a strong naval fleet and some good air power, as well as a good defensive land units as well. So I think he's in a great position. For Destral's round 2 mobilization, he gets 19 reinforcement points, and with that he spends it on a Rattler, a Wolf, and 2 infantry units. And here we see a couple of moves. Up near his harbor base, we have a cruiser and an infantry finally take over that 1 victory point. We see a shifting of units down near Greenland, reinforcing the position there and the victory points there. And we also see a combat move as well, where Destro decided to send a couple of his Rattlers. Now, in this game, there is a special ability for air units called the Dive Bomb. And this allows you to strike one time. So you have one round of combat, and you can choose to just hit the C unit. So he decided that he's going to go after that cruiser and hopefully get a hit on it and be able to strand Snowjob's units over there. After one round of combat, Destro's Air Force was able to destroy the cruiser in the victory point location, and his planes were able to land safely. After combat, Destro decided to place all of his units at the North Pole base, and now has a pretty impressive Air Force in the area. And this is the state of the global map after Destro's turn, and you can see at this point, I think it can still go either way. I think the blue team did a great job bolstering up their forces. They're going to be ready to be on the offensive, I think, soon. I think white is still in a really good position. The G.I. Joes, I think, are still in a good position, as well as the Cobra forces at this time. And I just think it can go either way. And next up for the end of round 2 is Snowjob, who is going to be receiving 27 reinforcement points due to having won in the strategic reserve from the previous round. And he decides that he's going to mobilize an aircraft carrier, a Sky Striker, and a cruiser. So definitely bolstering his naval power for this round here. Let's see what he does. Not a whole lot happening here, but we do see some of his forces move out of the Greenland base there, in a position to maybe attack in a later round, or maybe trying to bait Destro or Cobra Commander's forces to kind of get a little closer. He is out of the range of the Destro Air Force, so it may kind of look like he's in a dangerous position, but he's actually out of the range of those fighters, at least for now. We'll have to see what he ends up planning to do later on. I do like what I see here. We see a cruiser landing 2 land units next to that victory point, putting pressure on Destro. That it's probably going to have to force Destro to make some defensive moves over there. And it puts Snowjob in a good position, probably going to end up taking that victory point in the next round or so. And put pressure on that base that is lightly defended at the moment. So we'll see what happens. And here we just simply see Snowjob mobilizing his aircraft carrier, Sky Striker, and cruiser. And at the end of round 2, this is the current state of the battle map. And in my opinion, I think the G.I. Joes are in really great position. If they can hold out, I think it's going to take them another round or two to be able to really spread their wings offensively. And we'll have to see how the Cobra forces react to this. If they're able to strike quickly, maybe they could do a lot of damage. But otherwise, I think there is some opportunity here for the G.I. Joes to be able to take one of the bases. So we'll see how it goes in the next round. And at the end of round 2, we see G.I. Joe losses at 15 reinforcement points. However, they did gain an additional 2 victory points, bringing their total to 4. Cobra losses, 15 reinforcement points this time. Not a whole lot of combat, but a good amount. And their victory points remain at 7. Be sure to stay tuned and watch for episode 2 to find out the conclusion of our first battle report. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this game so far. Have you played it? What are your strategies? And also, who do you think is going to win in this battle report?